Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I am Ron. That is David. And this, of course, is the FreshBaked Presents podcast, the inaugural podcast, our very first one, where we are going to bring you everything we can possibly think of Disney and Disneyland related. Today, I think the first thing to start with, David, how do you feel about Disney's interactive proposal to all of us? Did they overplay their hand with interactivity?
Well, yeah, I think by a large margin they did. This is something that I have sort of been observing. I'll tell you this much. I thought I wanted it. I thought I wanted interactivity in the park. And what we're talking about is elements like Galaxy's Edge, where they have the LARPing elements, the interactive elements and queues. This idea, the Millennium Falcon, Smuggler's Run, that's an interactive. They're asking you to participate in the attraction. I do think that they overplayed that a little bit, especially when you compare it to things that they've done in the past. Traditional rides, conventional rides that we've seen, attractions that we've seen Disney do. The idea, I feel there's this need. I don't know if you agree with me. Let me run this by you, because you do a lot of research, I'm sure, and you kind of participate or study how theme parks interact with their guests.
Right.
There's this need to constantly innovate. They feel like if you're not doing something new, you're falling behind. Would you agree with that?
I absolutely actually would, and that's interesting, because that's how I view the whole notion of interactive, but not to be confused with immersive, because the interactive...
That is an important distinction, because I've had this conversation with people, and they use the term immersive when we're having a conversation about interactivity, and they are not the same thing. I love immersion. Immersion Correct. Is the best.
I could not agree more. Immersion is the best, and interactive, and the way I differentiate the two specifically is the back and forth of interactive. Interactive is a binary action taking place with another being, thing, person, whatever. There's a back and forth that's taking place. Immersion is almost artificially putting you in a world, and that is amazing. So to your point and question regarding the cutting edge technologies or the staying ahead of the curve from a business standpoint, I often think of these things. I am definitely a Disney nerd and a Disney fan. I'm also absolutely infatuated with the way they do their business. So when I think of the original pitch meeting that happened, say 2015, 14, or sooner, maybe, when somebody brought to the table the idea of what if Smuggler's Run, for example, what if we could have them, the guests, fly in all these different roles? And I feel like at the time, how do they not do it? I feel like the need for it was there to do it, because how do you not do it? That being said, it's just not, I don't know the sustainability of it.
If they had what do they call that if they had asked me, David, would you like to fly the Millennium Falcon? 100 times I would have said yes.
Correct.
I want to fly the Millennium Falcon. Right?
Totally agree. Yeah, for sure. I mean, it sounds cool. Even you saying it now sounds cool.
Right. And I guess it's still, I still do want to fly it. Don't get me wrong. I just don't want to do anything. Okay? I just just put me in the Falcon. You guys do the rest. Is that all right?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that the Falcon, it is interesting, because if we were going to go down the top 10 things, if I had a family member or friend coming that had never been to Disneyland and they were experiencing it, and I said there's 10 things we absolutely need to experience, not one of them is interactive. Not one. I just don't think that Smuggler's Run's queue is worth it. It's almost like if you love Star Wars, you have to go through it to see it. But by the way, the ride is eh. And I'll even go into a quick story about that, just because it just happened top of mind. Champ and I went to the park last weekend, and I was on Smuggler's Run. I've been on it several times, but it was the first time I was an engineer. And knowing that we were going to talk about this, it didn't occur to me at the time. But when I got off, the ride was over, And I remember saying that was not an enjoyable experience simply because I stared at the green flashing lights the entire time. And when you're a pilot and when you're a gunner, you can participate in the ride, even though you still have work to do. You can at least enjoy it. There's a very big distinction.
Pilot and co-pilot, in a lot of ways, is really the only job that's fun, I think, because it's happening in front of you, and you can kind of feel it's different for the pilot and the co-pilot.
Right.
The gunners and the engineers is button mashing.
The only way the gunner works is because you don't ever need, at least I don't, look at the panels. It's just top, middle, bottom. So I look at what's displaying, and I just start doing that with what I see on the digital screen. Engineer, there's no chance.
Pro tip on the gunner, by the way, while we're here, you can just hold it.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Just hold it down, and it'll keep firing. You don't have to spam it. Anyway, it's funny when I reflect on that idea, and you come from entertainment, you come from movies, etc. You could probably agree with me on this, I think. But when it comes to telling stories and what works and what doesn't, why is it, or doesn't it seem like every story that comes out of Hollywood or whatever is based on, I don't know, Greek mythology or Shakespeare? And they're all derivative of that. They're telling the same story over and over and over again. And why is that? Because they go back to what's good, what worked for 1,000 years.
I'm going to say, there's books out there. There's only 8 plots or 16 plots or
right.
32 possible plots that get regurgitated over and over.
There's half a dozen guitar strings or guitar chords out there. It's the same thing. And I feel like they're depending too much on innovation and getting ahead and trying to make new stuff. And I don't think we want that. I think we want Greek mythology and we want Romeo and Juliet. I think.
Yeah, we want characters that we care about, and that's really what story is all about. If you don't care, but think about any movie, think about any story. What causes movies to fail is when we watch them and we invest in them and we try to fall into it, but we just don't care about the characters. When that happens, it fails.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, another thing, put it another way. Quickly name the 2 most famous attractions at Disneyland.
Pirates and Haunted.
If I were a magician, I would have said he's going to say pirates. You know what I'm saying? Like, you kind of already know what they're going to do before you even ask the question.
Right.
The answer is Pirates and Haunted Mansion. Right?
Right. Well, I mean, just nostalgia-wise, I feel like it's been there.
Maybe, but they're also awesome. When I leave Pirates, I feel great. When I leave Haunted Mansion, I feel great. You know what I mean? I still feel good when I leave those attractions because they're good and they're telling a story. And all we're doing is sitting in a boat or sitting in an omnimover.
Yes, and that goes back to experiencing it. So the experience of Haunted Mansion and the experience of Pirates of the Caribbean it's just great. You're just going through the stories, and your imagination is going. You could be on it dozens and dozens of times, as we all have, and still pick out new things or look at different things, and that experience feels good. And I always judge rides on how I feel. There's rides that are not super popular, but they make me feel good, and I just like them. So simply because of that. And you're right. Those
Peter Pan makes you feel good.
Right. You know what's funny is Winnie the Pooh makes me feel good, and who would argue that's a great ride? But it's just something about it just makes me feel good.
Yeah. I laugh every time I go by when he's in the honey pot. Every time.
It's so well lit. It's so cute. I mean, we're just drifting, but when you think of the interactive rides, like, here's what's funny is I don't like it. I'm not signing up for it. I did Web Slingers. And I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. However, that's because it was the first time and the excitement was there. But when I say all of those things, Astro Blasters, Buzz Lightyear I've probably been on that ride less than any ride in either park because I just don't like it. My son, 9, 10, 11, all of these years, he loves it. It's not for me. Toy Story Mania, I absolutely love.
That's interesting.
And another interesting thing is I think they overplayed their hand in a way it's the digital screen. Motion sickness and problems for people is a real thing, and all of these most of these interactive rides presents that.
Yeah.
Case in point.
I get motion sickness very easily, and I don't enjoy that element of Millennium Falcon either, especially when you go down the shaft, when you drop down.
Right. Let me ask you this, David. What would you consider, or not what would you consider the canoes? Roger
Is that
Rabbit
interactive, you mean?
Yes.
No. I don't. That's not the same for me. No, not at all.
Or Roger Rabbit's Cartoon Spin, or the Mad Tea Party.
Well, you're not really doing anything with those. Those are. I mean, they make
You don't
me.
have. I
get motion sickness from those. Yes.
Well, you don't have to do anything. However, if you want to spin, you have to spin.
Oh, that yes.
And if you want to canoe, technically speaking, you could get on all three of those without doing a darn thing. However, you are kind of invited to participate in it.
I get where you're going, but it just feels differently to me because it's not an interaction, like you said. It's not a binary situation. There's not they do a thing, then you do a thing, or they're not. I don't know. It feels, and that's we kind of got stuck on Millennium Falcon, but a large part of what we were talking about also is, or part of it, I should say, is that whole LARPing element that they were supposed to be having at Galaxy's Edge, which I do think they gave up on that almost immediately.
Yeah, I'm confused by that because I remember the initial. We're talking pre-opening with droids roaming around. They had droids tracks in the concrete, the droid depot, which I would consider an immersive experience, because you choose to do that, so it's different. I suppose you could argue you choose to do the attractions as well, but
you use the word immersive.
Right. Well, Savi's workshop is immersive. That's what I mean. Like you're doing something, but I think that part of the story or that part of the show is, even though it's interactive, it is immersive.
Well, what I'm talking about is they were supposed to, the cast members were supposed to interact with the guests.
Right.
If you crashed the Millennium Falcon, there was supposed to be somebody who would come and talk to you, at Oga's Cantina when you're done and let you know that you screwed up or something like that. The cast members were supposed to be in on the elements, talking about how they referred to the restrooms as refresher stations. Or I can't remember.
When was the last time
them.
you heard Bright Suns?
I still hear that from time to time, but it's because I'm saying it. But
it's interesting because I hadn't thought about it until you just brought it up, and that's a great point. In the last few times I've been there, I know times are different, so don't judge all things equally. But I can't recall hearing Bright Suns, frankly. And I'm not blaming them at all. It's just the circumstances are vastly different.
Yeah, and I don't know. I just feel like when I think I could speak for at least the majority of people. When I go to Disneyland, I'm on a break.
Right.
I'm checked out from life. I'm checked out from responsibility. I'm checked out from a lot of things. I want you to entertain me. Entertain me. I don't want to have to be responsible for, participating or creating the entertainment. The whole point of me being at Disneyland is for you to entertain me for $150. You know what I mean? That's what I want, right?
I agree. I totally agree. I'm the same way. I've been since day one I was bummed out about Smuggler's Run when we first heard the news. I was bummed out, especially when at first it was presented in a fashion that you're going to be going on there with complete strangers, and now you're almost like you have to team up with people you don't know. And I'm not saying that that's a negative thing or a bad thing in any way, but like to your point, I just want to go there and relax and take it all in. I don't want forced social interaction unless I'm choosing it.
Right. Well, I don't mind that part of it. I don't mind as much. As a matter of fact, I was doing the single rider video that we did recently. Required me to do single rider on Millennium Falcon, so I was with 5 strangers, and that might have been the best ride I've ever had on Smuggler's Run, but only because they were crazy.
Right.
And I don't know if I would have got the same experience with my friends, because I don't know, but they were a lot of fun because they were really into it. They were screaming and yelling, and and that made it enjoyable for me. So it's not exactly always a bad thing to mix with strangers. That part doesn't bother me.
Not at all. And same. I had the same experience this weekend. We had 2 older ladies and 2 younger. probably granddaughters that were on it, and they now tell you where you're going to be. You're the two pilots. They're not handing out cards.
Right.
And they said they saw me and my son, and they asked us if we had been on it, and they offered. They're like, you guys want to fly? You guys want to be the pilots or whatever? And of course, I was like, you guys should experience it. It's really, really cool.
Yeah.
So having the conversation with them, and all I was saying, because I'm a social butterfly, as anybody that follows me on Twitter or sees me on the show knows. I only meant like the initial notion, like that very first, like, oh gosh, we're now going to start this ride that we don't know anything about, and we're going to go on it. Like the first day, then you get over it. Same with web slingers. You know what? I was kind of poo-poo on that whole idea. I'm like, really? They're going to do this? I can vision myself shooting webs like Spider-Man, and I'm in my 40s, and get off my lawn. Like I was all crusty about it. Then I did it, and I was like, you know what? It wasn't near as bad as I thought. That being said, I would much rather just sit and enjoy a ride.
Yeah, I wholly agree. I do not. Web Slingers was better than I thought it would be for me. It's good-ish.
Right.
But you know what? It's funny. I actually haven't yet. I've only filmed it. I haven't even done the web slingy part of it yet. So I don't even know if I would enjoy that or not.
Well, my competitive. I had to try to if I'm going to do it, I'm going to try to do it right and be good at it. So I was flying webs like a million miles trying to set world records. So I got into it, and of course I was with my son, which always, brings the kid out in you. So it was fine. It was fun. And nothing negative to say about it other than it's just, like I said, if I had friends and family coming in, it's not making my list.
Yeah. No, I'm okay. I'm okay not. I haven't even tried to go on it since then. I'll tell you what, though, that does remind me that I think that Disney has adjusted a little bit how Marvel Land, Avengers Campus, there are no interactive elements. There's a little bit with the Dora Milaje, a little bit where they ask you to participate with them, do the moves that they're doing kind of thing. But otherwise, you're not, just web slingers, and that's it. Otherwise, it's the characters, it's the Marvel heroes performing for you. I would much rather watch Spider-Man do a thing on the rooftops and just be an observer.
100% correct.
Black Widow.
Right, exactly right. And I was thinking the same thing. I had a conversation with somebody, I don't even remember who, but other vlogger friends. But the interesting thing was all the mistakes, quote unquote mistakes that were made at Galaxy's Edge, they are not making at Avengers Campus. And all the things that you just mentioned, but that kinetic energy, the overhead visuals that take place at Avengers Campus is what is so lacking at Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. And not only that, I'm a Disney fan to the utmost of the way they do their business, the way they do anything. And I've said since day one, and I've talked about it to death, the dumbest decision and the dumbest notion I've ever heard in my entire life is creating a Star Wars land without arguably, probably the greatest villain in the history of cinema, in the world. Global villain. There's no bigger villain than Darth Vader, but yet he can't go to Star Wars land. That's dumb.
But timeline continuity, Ron. I mean, come on.
And by the way, I'm going to be right. I don't know when, but they will fix it. Just think about it for a second. Think about it. I agree, and I've been saying it since day one. But just aside from the fact he's not there yet, just in your mind's eye, just imagine Vader walking down Galaxy's Edge. I mean, Kylo's there and Kylo's cool, but Vader's Vader.
You know what? You made a point earlier about Avengers Campus and looking up and seeing them on the rooftops. For me, that is significantly better than them actually being on the ground. I would rather see Darth Vader spying, watching us from above. And they started playing with that recently. Right. Somebody showed me an image of Rey up on those Millennium Falcon cliffs. The rock work up there. And she's I don't necessarily need them on the ground interacting with me. I just want them to be present and blended into the scenery almost as part of the scenery.
No. I agree. I think that's right. It's also part of the mystique of who they
Yeah.
are anyway. Like, it works for Star Wars. Like, Chewie needs to be on the ground, but Vader, yeah, we shouldn't have any, we shouldn't be anywhere near him.
Don't mess with Chewie. Chewie's perfect, just like he is.
I totally agree.
Chewie
agree.
might be the very best ground character ever ever brought to the parks. He is the best.
I think he is the best. Yeah, it's interesting because I was considering a list of the greatest characters within the park, and Chewie's absolutely one of them because all credit obviously to the cast members, but once again with Champ, he went there with his R2-D2 ears. Chewie went up to it and started doing a message into the ears, and you could figure out, you could see what he was doing, and it was it was just so clever and so smart and so good. And
that's great.
Yeah, I mean, it's good luck beating Chewie when it comes to interaction. Speaking of,
yeah, but well, that's just the way it should be, though. And for one of the reasons why he's great, by the way, is because he doesn't speak. And
right.
I think that's where some of us get put off, because there are people who aren't comfortable in those binary situations, like you mentioned, where there's an exchange happening. I am personally, it is very difficult. You see me interacting with cast members in the videos. That is the most excruciating thing for me sometimes, to be able to have a conversation. I can barely have a conversation with a cast member, or with a character on the ground, and I don't want to be. I would just avoid the situation in order to avoid being wrong or awkward or whatever.
Right.
No,
I hear you. Like,
it scares me a little bit. It scares me a little bit if there's an expectation.
Yeah, like I get that with Cruella. Like, I think Cruella's.
Yeah.
I think she's amazing, and I love hearing her and watching her from afar. I don't want her to talk to me.
Don't talk to me, because I don't know what to say other than
but how good
dogs.
Are they? It's so funny because I think about how good they are to do that, and how witty and quick and clever they are. Like, I don't think they get enough credit for how difficult. I mean, they must be improv. They must be well trained in improv.
Yeah.
I mean,
and the
like, artists, talent, like unionized.
And that's where the awkwardness comes in for me, because I want to come up to their level. Like, I don't want to let them down. I don't want to be this moronic idiot who doesn't know what to say to this wonderful character, this wonderful actress that's doing this thing. Right. And I'm just be here like, duh, like, I don't know what to say to you.
No, it is true. It is true. And then, like, to circle back to, like, the interactive elements that are in the park, I wonder where it's going. I wonder, what do we know about the E-Traction that's coming to Avengers Campus? I know all these things are years away, and I know they're going to have feedback between now and then, but I do worry about interactive sustainability. I don't know if it's going to get old quick.
That's a good observation, because from what we know of the Avengers e-ticket, which is basically what everybody calls it, it was an interactive experience. You get the pack, you're strapped into something, and you got to fight something against a screen. And I just, you know what? Don't ask me to help you, okay? You're the heroes. You know what I mean? Like, why do they? We need your help, and that's Slingers. We need your help. Stop. You know what? You don't need my help. What am I? Come on. Like, I don't want to help you.
You're the superhero.
You're the superhero. I want to watch you win. That's why we all paid $1 trillion to see Marvel movies over the last 10 years, because we want to watch you win.
Right.
You do the thing. You be the hero. You Hulk out and fly and shoot webs and all that stuff. I'm just a guy.
Yeah. I mean, I would rather they just. I mean, to your point, I guess the interactive, the LARPing, the Ray hiding behind the garbage cans. I haven't seen that in ages. When she was running through the land, hiding. And then also the element. What about another thing this is maybe just me, is I'm anti, even when I walk my dog, I do not even take my cell phone, because I like to see the world. So when I'm in a Disney park, I am not looking at my cell phone. And the Disney Play app, I guess, when you're in I guess there's a time and place for it. But I feel like I'm just not a fan of taking myself out of the element and putting my face in my phone. And they have, I suppose they have to do it because it's just another channel for them to market.
Well, maybe, but I also think they think that's what we want.
That's probably true.
And they think that we want to have these additional, make the park come alive on your phone. No.
No. I mean, I tried it for a hot minute at Galaxy's Edge. I know I
couldn't
did
do
it. I couldn't either. I didn't understand it. I didn't want to. And once again, it was my pet peeve. I found myself staring into my phone while I'm at Disneyland. And you just alluded to what we pay to go into it. And we're paying for the value. So when I get the value, I don't mind it at all. But when I go there and the day's over and all I can recall is staring at my phone that I could have done on my couch for free, like, forget it.
Yeah. No, thank you. No, thank you.
I don't know if it's a little bit out of our element, but the Star Wars hotel, things of that nature. Now, I guess that's a choice you're making. That's a choice you're making, so I guess you know what you're signing up for, and it's also high-level Westworld, high-dollar Westworld.
Well, that's what they're going for. They're going for Westworld, exactly. And again, if you had asked me, hey, David, do you want to go to Westworld? I would have 100 times. I would have said yes. But the more that I ruminate on what's going to happen when you go to the Star Wars hotel, I think people are going to reject it. I really do. Because when I'm on vacation, I don't know that I want to be responsible for my own entertainment. I'm paying $4,000, $6,000. I definitely want to be in the world. I want to go to Westworld. I want to stay in an Old West hotel. I want to get a sarsaparilla, and I want to encounter the Cowboys. I want to encounter Darth Vader, but I don't want to be required to do anything. And if they're banking on people participating as part of the value of your show, people are gonna be disappointed. I think people are gonna be disappointed. I know it pains me to say this.
Right.
They're gonna be disappointed, I think, because people are buying in to the hotel just because they want to be in Star Wars. They want to be in Star Wars, and I want to be in Star Wars. But that's it. That's it.
Well, you know what you don't see in Star Wars? You know what you don't see in Star Wars in the films? And you don't see
humans.
You don't. Well, exactly. That's what I was going to say. Is human behavior. You don't see sleeping. You don't see resting. You don't see eating. You see. I always equate it to being on. So when you're the funny guy and you go out with your friends or whatever, if you go out for a week, couple of days of kind of being the funny one in the group on a vacation or a weekend, I mean, it's tiring being on. So if you're going somewhere, no matter how much money you have, it's not inexpensive. So you are spending a pretty penny for something. So that means the expectation has now risen dramatically, and you also have to be on the entire time because I don't think they're factoring in too much rest. And it's just an interesting talk about sustainability. I see.
Have you seen the calendar, the itinerary for the hotel?
No, I haven't. So I guess that answers that.
There's a lot. There's a lot.
I mean, there would have to be. They would have. I mean, wouldn't you think that they would have to present this in a way where you're turning down things for that price? You know what I mean?
Well,
like, you don't have to do all of these things, but you can do all of these things.
Like, think of a cruise.
Right.
This is supposed to be. You're comparing this. Typically, the comparison for the hotel is like going on a cruise, but a cruise doesn't have nearly as many. Here's your list of things you've got to do today. It's drink, eat, gamble perhaps, maybe go see one of the shows that they have, then go to port and go visit whatever place that you're going to, and then come back to the boat, right? So, and it's funny because you talked about the human elements of Star Wars. There was no food in the first 3 movies. Blue milk was the only food that you saw anybody consume. And
Yoda on a little tiny cracker.
And Yoda's little biscuit, yeah.
But I totally agree. So immersion is definitely, it's a great topic to have begun the podcast on, simply because it's not going away anytime soon. And it will be interesting to see where it goes. Like, frankly, I am curious. I'm not a giant fan of it, but I am just curious to see where it goes and looking back and seeing what worked, what didn't work, and where it's going. Because, hey, like I said, Buzz Lightyear Astro Blasters is still out there. That thing won't go away, and I think it's just not that great.
Buzz Lightyear tangent, is the most expensive fast pass at Disneyland Paris?
That is crazy.
Right?
So that's a good place to close. That's a good place to close that.
Okay.
That is so interesting. So, all that being said, and moving right along here, David.
Yes.
And FreshBaked. Did you know? Walk with me here. 1951. 4 years prior to the opening of Disneyland, Walt had been, brainstorming ideas to create a place where parents and children could have fun together. He envisioned transforming the 11-acre lot across from his Burbank studio into a Mickey Mouse park. Walt explained his vision of the park, including a main village, town hall, police, fire departments, opera house, main theater, and of course a train circling the park, to his then art director, Harper Goff, to sketch the concept designs, making Goff the first Imagineer. It quickly became apparent that 11 acres was not going to be enough, and as a result, that was the birth of the Disneyland concept. 2 years later, 160-acre Orange Grove in Anaheim was selected to become the home for Walt's dream. In one of Goff's original early sketches, a dilapidated Victorian-era house was depicted, and it was, of course, the first visual of what would become the Haunted Mansion. But not before a tumultuous 14-year struggle littered with as much uncertainty as questions. Would it be at the end of Main Street or on the banks of the Jungle Cruise? Would it be old and tattered or grand and pristine? Would it be a walkthrough, a boat ride, or something else entirely? Would it be haunted by pirate ghosts, angry spirits, or happy haunts? Would it be narrated by a one-eyed cat? Yes, it was discussed. A raven? A ghost host? July 17th, 1955, Disneyland opened without Walt's haunted house. But due to its success, Walt began expansion plans immediately in 57. He went to Ken Anderson, who had success combining fear with enjoyment in designing Snow White's Scary Adventures and Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. And he went to him about designing a haunted walkthrough attraction. Anderson's first treatment of his ghost story, which would change several times, contained a bride and her sea captain who, according to local legend, disappeared under mysterious circumstances. Many years earlier, the story would be told by a maid or butler leading guests through. In 58, New Orleans Square first appeared on a Disneyland souvenir map with that haunted house prominently featured. Shortly thereafter, Anderson would sketch his own version depicting a decaying antebellum mansion. Walt loved the menacing appearance, but didn't approve of a broken-down house tarnishing the pristine look of his Disneyland, so that answered that. And with that settled, focus then turned to the inside of the mansion. It was 1959 now. Two of Walt's top studio artists, Raleigh Crump and Yale Gracie, were brought onto the project to develop special effects, illusions. Crump, a master of stage illusions. Gracie, a mechanical genius and master model builder. By 61, Walt so believed his haunted attraction would be ready to open with New Orleans Square, he announced it would be there in 63. Construction began in 62, but due to Walt's commitments to develop attractions for the 64 New York's World's Fair, it paused all major Disneyland projects. Only the facade of the haunted house would be completed in 63. A year later, Mark Davis, lead designer and animatronics expert for the Enchanted Tiki Room, Jungle Cruise, joined the project 13 years after it originally began. He officially dubbed it the Haunted Mansion. The mansion sat idle for years until Pirates of the Caribbean was finally completed in 67, and Imagineers were able to turn their focus back to the project. Davis and Claude Coates, a set designer and background artist, had collaborated to make Pirates such a tremendous success. They were teamed up for this project, leading to one of the greatest debates to ever take place in Imagineering. Should the Haunted Mansion be scary or funny? Coates believed it should be scary and frightening, while Davis believed it was Disney and should be lighthearted with humorous gags. As we now know, they both won, and frankly, we all won, as the first half of the ride is Coates' influence, while the second half is Davis's. New Orleans Square had opened the previous summer of 66, and sadly, Walt would pass that December. He would never see the finished product of Pirates or the Haunted Mansion. The delay did prove to have a silver lining, however, as the World's Fair had introduced a people mover, which Coates helped evolve into the Omni Mover, a game changer. would move a huge volume of people, spin into a scary reveal, and even had onboard speakers adding to the excitement. The Doom Buggy was now here. Pirate script writer and Yoho, A Pirate's Life for Me author Exitenzio would write the story and tie together all the characters, themes, gags, special effects, as well as pen the indelible theme song Grim Grinning Ghosts. On August 9th, 1969, the Haunted Mansion would welcome foolish mortals for the very first time, 14 years after Disneyland opened. It was the first major attraction to open without Walt's final input, and exactly 1 week after its opening, Disneyland celebrated what was then the highest single-day attendance. The Haunted Mansion turned 52 this week, which is why I speak of her now. And still today, she remains an Imagineering masterpiece. With its unparalleled mystique, all the questions were answered. Maybe except for one. Haunted Mansion Classic or Haunted Mansion Holiday? And that is a conversation for a different day. And David, did you know that?
I did know most of that, yes. Thank you very much. That was wonderful. Thank you, Ron.
I know you knew most of that. It just so happened that it was her birthday this week, so that's how she got the bill.
And she's about ready to go behind refurb walls again, getting ready for the holiday.
Yeah, I mean, what a enjoyable attraction. I happen to like both.
Me too.
I do. I like both. And it goes back, I actually, funny thing, I said it earlier, where things that make me happy. I always, for so long, said I like the original better, and I'm not saying that I don't. But every single time I get up the Holiday Mansion, first of all, when Halloween season comes, is my favorite time of the year in Disneyland. That transition is like no other. And then when I get off that attraction, I feel happy. I feel giddy. So
yep, I agree.
It works in both ways. And I know the Haunted Mansion holds a very near and dear place in your heart.
It does indeed.
It does indeed. So, David, do you think we should field a few questions that may or may not have been submitted to you over the week?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do some mailbag.
Let's get into some mailbag. Do you have it queued up, my friend, or would you like me to present you with the question?
You go for it.
So first of all, we'd like to thank everybody who submitted questions. We got tons. We got lots of fantastic questions. David threw out a tweet, and we got response. And there were many, many to choose from, and I'm sure we'll be covering many, many of them in the weeks to come. Number one question that made the cut was from Mark at I Burnt My Toast. Thank you, Mark, for submitting the question. It's a good one. What is an IP you guys want to see implemented, whether through a ride or a show at the Disneyland Resort in the future? Take it away.
Yeah, that is a question that is an important one for me, and it's something that I will die on this hill. None. There are no IPs out there that I want represented in the park anymore. We have enough. I would like something new and original, and you can keep your IPs. I feel like Disney is more benefited from creating the IP in the park and then sending it out to be a movie a la Pirates of the Caribbean or Jungle Cruise. I think it should work in that direction, not the other way.
It is happening. That's the new trend that will be happening. We have a Haunted Mansion coming, Pinocchio coming. It's coming. Well, Pinocchio, I guess you could call a remake. Haunted Mansion, though, Haunted Mansion is certainly going to happen, and that is actually near and dear to my heart because a friend of mine is writing it. So that helps. Yeah. Well, I use the term friend loosely. I worked with Katie Dippold on Parks and Recreation for years, and she's a great writer. Her resume speaks volumes. I'm sure everybody knows. And she's doing it. So I'm really, really cheering for her. But aside from that entirely, I really, really want a successful Haunted Mansion movie, and I don't hate the original because as bad as it is, it's almost so bad it's good. Like,
yeah,
I watch
it
every year. I do watch it every year, and I'll never defend it and say it's good, but it certainly gets shredded, and when I watch it, I don't hate it near as bad.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of meat on that bone. What you said is I didn't consider the question in that fashion. But I think you're right. I will say that a couple things. I think the correct answer of what we're most likely to see is going to be Frozen because it's a franchise. It's all about franchises. So Frozen, I think, is probably the most likely that we will see. If I had to choose, I think I would. It's different on what I think would be successful, what would work, and what I would want. And those are two different things.
What do you want?
Right. Well, what I want and what I think is successful, because I kind of hedged my bet here, is Beauty and the Beast. I think Beauty and the Beast is one of the greatest stories, even though it can be argued it's shallow. But it's a great story. I love it. I think another thing is 1989 with The Little Mermaid and Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which is a whole different conversation, but that really started the Renaissance period. There hasn't been a film or an IP implemented into the park since then. And Frozen was 2013 and Beauty and the Beast was 91. So I think representation, if it had to be done, would be then. And I think the last thing that I would say is, I guess this is to your point, David, actually. Now I didn't know what you were going to say, but now that you've said that, one thing I was going to say is I don't want to add an IP as badly as I want to make a current IP correct, and that would be Winnie the Pooh, which we talked on earlier. Winnie the Pooh, and the reason I say that is you talk about franchises and you talk about value. Like I don't know that most people realize that Winnie the Pooh is one of the biggest money makers across the board for Disney. It's IP, it's property, it's up there with Disney princesses. It is massive because it's global and it is other things like just media franchises. It's so big in so many areas outside of the park. So Beauty and the Beast or upgrade Winnie the Pooh would be my answers.
You're a big softie.
I'm a real big soft. If you had any idea of what any of this markings on my arm meant, you would really say I'm a softie. Anything you want to add on the IPs, David? You pretty much nailed it, though.
Yeah, that's just. I mean, I will add this. There's no chance of me getting what I want. Chapek's already been on record as saying that IP is the barrier to entry. Nothing gets done in Disneyland anymore without an IP influence. So I'm probably going to be out of luck, but that's just my feeling. I feel like, again, I go back to what are the best attractions ever made at Disneyland are the ones that weren't based on IPs. And,
yeah, I agree.
You know, the problem is IPs are a moving target. They can come in and out of fashion quickly, and before you know it, you've got an attraction that everybody hates. So I know it's risky to build attractions that nobody knows about. I know that's risky, but that's how things stick. That's how you make it stick. You don't want to have a revolving door of reskins. I hate reskins. And if you get an IP wrong, then you have to reskin it, and now it's just a mess.
No, you're right, and it goes back down to sometimes we forget, even though we don't. I'm just saying that. Sometimes we forget that it absolutely is a business, and to your point, it is riskier, and they don't want to take the risk when they know that they have guaranteed revenue. And this also speaks to something I've also spoken about a lot: is the live action remakes. Like, look, I'm not the biggest fan of it in the world that they've done them as well.
Money.
I also exactly right. I also know that if I'm running Disney, quite frankly, I'm absolutely doing it because they're printing money. So
until you tell me to stop, I'm going to keep doing it.
Right. Okay, David, Reader 113 asks us, DCA needs more attractions. There's just not enough to do. How would you fix DCA? What would you add? What would you take away?
Well, you know, it's funny. It wasn't even 10 years ago that they put $1 billion into fixing DCA. And here we are 10 years later. Let's fix DCA. So apparently they didn't finish the job, I guess, right?
I know.
They're still trying to fix it. And I get it. Again, I think that this is going to sound like a cop-out again, but I do think nothing is the answer. Real estate for one thing is a problem. You could do there's Disneyland Forward. Do that. You know what I mean? Like, you need more land, because I don't want to see them reskin another ride. I don't want to see them do anything like that. If you don't like the way things are going, if you're going to do something, do it from scratch. If you're going to build a new ride, that's fine, I guess. But try to give me something new. If you're going to do that, don't reskin stuff. I'm just so over the reskins.
I think the biggest problem is it's an identity crisis. They have to commit to something and they don't know what to commit to. It's so disjointed.
Well, that's what I mean. They don't try. Just be. They are what they are now. This is DCA. Now make that good. Make it
right.
DC
Exactly.
doesn't have to be Disneyland, even though
you
we
know
wanted
what?
it to be.
No,
and that's
no,
why they. The 2.0 was all about making DCA more like Disneyland, which is good. I mean, I do like what they did. Buena Vista Street is far superior than it was. Cars Land is great. It's better than they built that out of dirt, right?
I love Cars Land. Cars Land makes me happy.
And I do think Avengers Campus is better than Bugs Land, obviously. Although I get the allure for Bugs Land because it's for kids, but honestly, you could do Bugs Land in 40 minutes. You could do the whole thing in 40 minutes, and then what? And it doesn't bring people in. It's only for kids. And you have to be kind of a weirdo like me who loves Heimlich in order to bring an adult in there, but that doesn't speak to the rest of the populace. So I get Avengers Campus. It's better. By the way, they turned down the volume at Avengers Campus, so thank goodness for that. It's not as loud as it was before. But I feel like they should just hold for now, and just make it better instead of trying to make the queues better or make the attraction more enjoyable or do something to make it better. Finish the rough edges as opposed to adding an attraction. But we'll see. Disneyland Forward, 15 years from now, maybe a thing.
Yeah, Disneyland Forward is going to absolutely help, and I totally agree. DCA is put together like a ransom note, and it's
right?
charming. It's charming in that fashion. I've said on record that I get it. It's not Disneyland, and it doesn't have to be. I'm not comparing it to Disneyland, but it does have its charms in the way that Charlie Brown Christmas Tree has its charms. Yeah. It's like I leave the energy of Disneyland and go to DCA, and it's a different energy, and it's a fun. I enjoy the energy. I thoroughly like the park, and it's certainly flawed. But that said, I can have just as much fun over there doing what I need to do. And I think to Reader's point, there's not a lot of attractions over there, so DCA kind of gets wiped out pretty quick. So I love the energy, but for a shorter period of time.
You gotta be in the mood.
Yeah, I don't. Well, I think it's more of it's almost like going from the energy's ramped up a little bit. Maybe because adult beverages are over there. I don't know. But the vibe. I like that transition of going over there for that period of time. I don't know what I would do because I've thought about this over the years, as we've discussed so many times. I don't know. I just don't know because I feel like it has to be. If there's changes, it almost has to be wholesale changes, or do like you've said before, just bulldoze it. But for Disneyland Forward, when you add little things like that and you start doing those things, it just blends, like you said, it just blends together. World of Color coming back would absolutely be an invited thing. But I don't know. That's certainly a question that we can just pin and answer again next year and the following year because what we have is what we have. Let's set up a race between Tomorrowland and DCA in actually changing much.
Some kind of expansion at DCA, you mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So, David.
Yes.
I think we should have a little bit of fun now and go with the top 5. We're going to do top 5 segment every single week, and we're going to talk about our top 5. And top 5 could be, we'll find out, but it could be favorite, it could be best, it could be most, least, whatever. We're going to call it the top 5, and we're just going to see what happens. So top 5 remaining things from opening day. Now, that is up for interpretation, and you don't know my 5, and I don't know your 5. So how do you want to do it? You want to do your number 5?
Yeah, I'll give you my 5. Yeah,
Or
I'll give you my 5. Yeah.
Okay, you go.
I'm gonna go Tom Sawyer's Island. It's for me. It's the definition of what Disney does best, taking you to another time and place. When I go there, I feel completely different than I do when I'm in the park on the ground. It's It's a break. It's a relief. It's gorgeous. The sights, the sounds, the tranquility, the silence. And I could listen to the Mark Twain and Columbia go by when I'm on that island for hours.
Yeah, it's a treat. Like you said, the tranquility and the taking you away, that silence. There's the sound of silence. There's something very, very enjoyable about it, and pleasure and tranquil.
Yep.
Do you want me to do my? Do you want me to do my number 5?
You give me your 5.
Okay. So once again, it's up to interpretation, and I went with Main Street vehicles, and when we get through the rest of mine, it'll make more sense. But the Main Street vehicles, because I can't imagine Disneyland, I can't imagine Main Street without them. Even if you don't get on them and ride them, the fact that they're going by, same thing can be said about the holding of the balloons. The balloons are not going anywhere ever because of what they look like. I have canvas art paintings in my bedroom, and guess what? Somebody's there holding the balloons in the background because it's just the aesthetics are there. And it was part of Walt's original notion of police station, fire station, having those things, having those vehicles moving, different levels, different tiers, different there's horse drawn. There's just I just think of the Main Street vehicles as being there. And number 5, I'll say this. We can circle back at the end, but number 5 was difficult for me because if we can only choose 5, we're leaving things off that are amazing, and this made the cut, and the other things didn't. And that
definitely there were things
that doesn't make them any less amazing.
And I cannot argue with Main Street vehicles. Everybody knows how much I love them. I try to ride one every week if I can. And so on that note, my 4th was actually Main Street in general. I love Main Street. I feel like it's when people talk about, hey, what's your favorite land at Disneyland? People forget Main Street as a place, and it's my favorite land in Disneyland. And I'm not talking about specifics in your case, like with the vehicles, but just when I enter the park and I go through Town Square and I walk down Main Street, a message is being transmitted to me, preparing us for what's to come. It's like we're putting you in this place, and we're going to give you a show, and Main Street kind of just sets the mood for the entire rest of the day. This is why I refuse to enter the park with the monorail, and even when it does come back, I ain't doing it.
Oh no,
Main Street is how you start your day, and I think they nailed it with Main Street, and I'm so grateful that for the most part they haven't touched it since opening day.
Right. No, I totally agree. We're basically saying the same thing with the vehicles. Part of the same aesthetic, and I totally agree.
Yeah.
In fact, that even the entrance is part of that same aesthetic. My number 4 is the Jungle Cruise because of its uniqueness and its talk about ambiance and talk about vibe. All the trees and plants and everything to take you away from Disneyland is on the Jungle Cruise. It's so. It doesn't get the credit for how much of a transformation. They made a jungle in an orange grove in Anaheim.
They
made
did.
a jungle. I mean, it's amazing. And the old tricks, and I gotta say the skippers, the jokes, the fun. The Jungle Cruise is just something. And again, like Main Street vehicles, you can't imagine Disneyland without it. And luckily, we're not gonna have to.
Well, this my 3rd one. It's a tough call because there's a lot of them competing. I wanted to go to Fantasyland. I wanted to go to a dark ride, and I know that people may disagree with me, but I Mr. Toad's is a place that you want to say, hey, why don't you pick Peter Pan? Well, because I never get to ride Peter Pan, for one thing, because it's always an hour wait. But I love how original Toad's is. I love
100%.
It is. I mean, you can't get any closer to the beginning. Well, you can, actually. We're going to get to that. But you can't get much closer to the beginning of Disneyland than you can with Mr. Toad's. give me a ride, give me a dark ride with barn doors, and I'm done. I don't know why I love barn doors in an attraction, and Mr. Toad's does it for me, and it makes me feel like I'm in 1955 every time I get on that ride.
Yeah, Mr. Toad's, spoiler alert, did not make my top 5 because, I mean, there's just no excuse for it other than the other 5. I just couldn't. We could have done truly one of the greatest dark rides ever. It takes you through the experience. The hot. It ends on a. It doesn't end with a bow tie. It's not a great ending. It's not a happy ending.
No
which
bow
is
tie.
Rare. It's Mr. Toad's is phenomenal and I love it. But as you can see now, number 3 for me is Mark Twain, and the reason I'm doing these 5 is I picked the 5 things that just cannot leave. Disneyland is not Disneyland without these 5 things, 100%. And as much as I love Mr. Toad's, it broke my heart because it didn't make the cut. But to me, the Mark Twain is Disneyland. I would argue, again, this is personal, I guess, but I would argue that more than the castle, the railroad, Mickey Mouse himself, the Mark Twain is Disneyland to me. That visual representation of Disneyland is the Mark Twain, and I think, to your tranquility about Tom Sawyer's Island, the Mark Twain was the very first thing I wanted to do when we went back to the parks, because I just wanted to take it all in. I just wanted to get on the top and quietly take it all in, and it was glorious.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm going to follow that up by saying that it's Mark Twain is my number 2. It's my number 2 favorite thing or best thing that is left over from 1955. I'll give you 2 things because you kind of said it all. One, it's the only attraction that has actually outlived the park because it was operating before they opened the park. They operated it for the Walt and Lillian's anniversary, and that again, that's a huge thing for me. And 2, to your point, whenever I'm standing at the dock waiting for the Mark Twain to arrive, in my mind, and sometimes I've said this out loud, here comes Disneyland.
Yep.
The Mark Twain is Disneyland.
Totally agree. My number 2 is, keeping with the theme, Disneyland Railroad. Just Disneyland isn't Disneyland without the Disneyland Railroad, and Walt actually owned it first and lent it to Disney.
Yeah.
Walt is a a railroad loving. Everything about Walt was railroad related, from Marceline all the way into the parks. And Disneyland Railroad is absolutely one of the greatest things ever at Disneyland, and certainly since opening day.
Agreed. That's my number 1. Disneyland Railroad is my number 1. People ask me, what's your favorite ride? My favorite ride is the Disneyland Railroad, be that it from 1955 or 2005 or whatever you want to call it. It's better than any modern attraction. It's better than any old attraction. And again, I'll take it back to Walt. That's how he wanted you to start the day. He wanted you to ride the train first. He wanted you to go through the tunnels, look at the posters, see what's happening. This is what's got. This is here's your options. Get on the train, go on a Grand Circle tour, and this is a preview. It's our preview of what might be in store. You might be going on an adventure. You might be going a little fantasy. Maybe you go to tomorrow. Who knows? But it's the trailer to your Disneyland day. Love the Disneyland Railroad.
Well said. And my number 1 is Sleeping Beauty's castle. Can't have Disneyland without the castle. And I think the way you break these things down and the way that I broke it down are what are simply untouchable, iconic staples at Disneyland. And as much as I love Mr. Toad's, and I think it also constitutes being one of these, but Main Street Vehicles, Jungle Cruise, Mark Twain, Disneyland Railroad, Sleeping Beauty's castle, which is placed there backwards because it looked better. Walt liked it better.
Oh yeah, the top half.
Yeah. So it's the castle is Disneyland. So
iconic.
That's it.
Yeah.
It's iconic. It's Disneyland. They're all Disneyland. That's it, David. We covered a lot. We had a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun.
Good start, man.
Everybody. Yeah. Thanks everybody for submitting the questions. We're going to have lots and lots of engagement going forward. And David, anything you'd like to direct them to do? Send them to?
Yeah, I want you to submit your questions for the mailbag. either in the comments below or on iTunes. They have a comment section on iTunes as well where we're going to be posting
Review, say something wonderful, and we may shout you out.
That's right. Or more. Or more.
Or more. So you might want to review.
Yeah.
Fantastic. It was a lot of fun. I look forward to doing it again. And thank you, David. Thank you, FreshBaked.
I agree. Thank you very much, FreshBaked. Thank you, Ronnie. Well hosted, sir. Well done.
FreshBaked.
FreshBaked.